Hello everyone and welcome to the last game we'll be showing from the Sinquefield Cup Grand Chester 2024. It is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave versus Liren from the final round, and this is an impactful game as Maxime drew his last 25 classical games. So he's on a 25 game drawing streak, if you will. I don't know if such a thing is if something like that is a thing. I've also been told it's some sort of a record. You know, yeah, sometimes players, don't lose, but they also win some of the games. But he actually drew last of his 25 games. Whereas Ding, he had a pretty interesting event. He started with drawing 6 games, then he lost to Alireza in round 7, then another draw, and now he has this game against MBL, looking for that first win of the tournament, which would not be that terrible as you are the reigning World Classical Champion. So let's dive straight into it. MVL with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. MVL goes for the Ruy Lopez. A6 morphies defense by Ding, bishop to a4, and now knight to f6. We have d3 and pawn to b5. Chases away the bishop, bishop to b3, and bishop to c5. The Anderssen variation, we have pawn to c3, pawn to d6, and bishop to g5. Pawn to h6, bishop to h4, and bishop to a7. So all been played before, nothing new here. We have castles, knight to a5 going after the bishop, bishop to c2, and pawn to c5. So if you've ever seen a chess game, this is probably the position that you've seen. I mean, if you open a chess book, you start off with a Ruy Lopez or with an Italian, something like this will come up. We have knight b to d2. Pawn to g5, bishop to g3, and knight to h5 going after the bishop. And you have to look at the times on the clock. So MVL spent 0 time here. He still has 2 hours on the clock. Ding also playing pretty much instantly, an hour and 52 minutes. And Ding already had this position on the board against none other than Richard Rapport in the Candidates Tournament of 2022. And Ding defeated Rapport with black in this from this position. But Rapport continued with pawn to a3, followed by pawn to b4. Whereas MVL prepared pawn to h3 again without wasting any time. So you can see that this is a direct preparation for Ding for, I don't know if it's through this particular game, but it really does feel like it. And this is the first time that Ding actually spends time in the game. He plays rook to b8. You can see that he spent, some 10-11 minutes on this move, and it's the exact same maneuver he used against Rapport. He played rook to b8, rook to b7, and then shifted the rook into the center of the board. But that was a different game. a3, b4 was the idea. Here, MVL goes for king to h1. We have rook to b7, sorry, not rook to b6, rook to b7, and knight to h2. We have knight to f4 by Ding, again burning some time here, and knight to g4. We have pawn to h5 attacking the knight, and knight goes back to e3. And okay, how do you continue in this position? Is it time to advance the pawns? Well, of course, pawn to g4. We have pawn to h4, and now knight back to g6. And it really doesn't look like something that you should play against a player like Ding, because okay, the h4 pawn will fall at some point, but MVL burning very little time. Obviously, he is prepared for this. We have queen to e1, and without having this move in your arsenal, and no doubt MVL had it maybe not in this exact same position or in the exact same setup, but as a motive, because he played this with like one minute on the clock. He spent 1 minute for queen to e1. Okay, maybe he discussed it with himself a few moves earlier, but I mean, finding this and calculating it in the actual game is not very likely. I will show you why. It seems like Ding can capture the h4 pawn, and it seems like, okay, you capture h4, you move the knight, you play h4, game over. But it's a bit more complicated than that, because if knight captures on h4, which was not played in the game, MVL's idea was pawn to f4. Now the threat is bishop captures knight on h4, and after knight to g6, pawn to f5. Okay, the knight either goes further back, or you counter with pawn to h4. This is the best move. And after bishop to h2, pawn to g3. Now pawn captures on g6, and you can't really capture, as not captures, but the g7 would be deadly. If you play this, then the queen also gets access to h4, so something like g7, rook g8, and the queen coming to h4 will be very tricky. Not at the moment. The queen is also guarding the h4 pawn, but it would not work. For example, captures g7 is just a terrible position. Even after rook to g8, something like knight to d5, knight to f6, for example, or you capture still knight to f6 check. This is just terrible for black. There's no good way to play this. Now the queen can capture on h4 and go for the attack, as the black king is no longer covering the h4 pawn. But what could happen is that after g3 and f captures on g6, you just play f captures on g6. For the moment, you sacrifice a piece, bishop to g1, and now queen to g5. And again, it looks like something that you really expect from a player like Ding. Let's say knight f3 attacks the queen, queen to h5, and now knight to d5, preventing h3 because of knight to f6 check, forking the king and the queen. Rook to f7, stopping that, and now bishop to d1, threatening all sorts of discoveries, but still h3, and now, okay, queen captures on g3, h captures on g2 with a double check, king captures and bishop to h3 check. Look at this, forcing the king all the way to f2, king f2, c4 with check, and now after king to e1, it seems that white is just better here. Bishop captures on f1, for example, and now there are many moves you could play here, but only knight to g5 gives the white the advantage. Now the queen is attacked, the rook is attacked, and you have nothing better than to trade queens. For example, captures, knight captures on f7, you pick up the bishop here, and you have a much better endgame. You're up a piece, but black sort of has a very nice control. Also, there's the passed g pawn. So all in all, white is much better here. Whether we will be winning, it's hard to say. But this is what the MBL is saying to Ding by playing queen to e1. I know what I'm doing here. Do you even dare calculate this? So okay, Ding could play something like castles, or he could maybe play pawn to c4 to open up the diagonal for his bishop, but he plays king to f8, which does look like a mouse slip, but okay, the king is actually very strong there, and for the moment he prefers to keep the rook on the h file. We have pawn to f3 by Maxime, and now pawn to c4. We have d captures on c4, bishop captures on e3. It looks like a pretty bad idea giving up the bishop for knight here, because you really love your bishop on this diagonal, but you really love your opponent's knight not being on d5 or on f5. So that's also one aspect of looking at chess. So bishop captures, queen captures, knight captures on c4, and knight captures on c4, b captures, and now pawn to b4 as the pawn on b2 was hanging. G captures on f3, we have queen captures, and the position is still very much playable. And the question is, can Ding capture on h4 now? The answer is yes, and he most definitely should. Idea being that after knight captures on h4, MBL has nothing better than queen to f6, attacking the queen, the knight, and the rook on h8. And after something like queen captures and rook captures, you will play knight back to g6, and the game continues. Yes, you lose on d6, but you play h4, h3. It's a very nice position for both white and black. But after queen captures on f3, bishop to g4 was played by Ding, and now MBL's position is just very strong. We have queen back to f2. And what can Ding make out of his position? Now the h4 pawn is defended twice, so you cannot capture on h4. What was his plan here? Okay, he goes king to g7, pawn to a4. And now if nothing else, there will be the possibility of creating a passed pawn sometimes in the future. We have rook to e8, getting the rook into the game, bishop to d1, offering a trade of bishops, which you could capture, but if you capture, then you could play a rook a captures on d1. You will double up some like rook d1, rook d5, rook d1. Also, the rook can come to a5 to put pressure on the a6 pawn. It's just a very tough position for black to handle. So we have rook to d7, but now putting both of your rooks on a light square on the same diagonal, and MVL having a light square bishop encourages him to play pawn to a5. Now the threat is bishop to a4, and how can you deal with this? Well, there are many moves you could play, something like rook to e6, just get the rook off of the diagonal, even though even then it's a very hard to actually play this. But Ding played knight to f4. He allows bishop to a4, and the question is, why doesn't okay, the knight is obviously coming to d3. Now, why doesn't MVL just capture the knight and play bishop to a4? Well, doing so would kind of put you in a position that you think you really don't want to have against the Dane. For example, rook captures. Okay, you do win the exchange. That's not an issue. Let's say rook a to e1 and pawn to d5. It really does look like a position Ding would thrive in. This is the chaos that he loves. But after queen captures on f4, the passed e-pawn isn't all that impressive. It's very, very hard to push it. For example, queen e6, you prepare to push queen g5. And there's no good square for the king as rook to f6 is coming. And you don't want to trade queens. So let's say you play something like king f8, rook to f6 attacks the queen. And after the queen moves, just rook captures on a6, attacking the queen, threatening rook a8 check. And you're just not in time to advance the pawn. If the pawn was, let's say, on e2, it would be compensation enough. But here, MVL doesn't capture it. I guess he just decided, okay, I'm not going to calculate. Ding is down to 25 minutes. Let's force him to calculate. Bishop to a4. Even though he did spend some minutes on bishop to a4. We have knight d3 attacking MVL's queen. Queen to b6, now attacking the queen and the rook. And rook to e6 now. But now MVL just captures the rook. Bishop captures on d7. Queen captures. And queen captures on a6, threatening queen captures on c4 as well. So where is Ding's counterplay? He plays bishop to e2, attacks the rook, but just rook to f5, rook to g6 going after the bishop, and now king to h2. We have pawn to d5, threatening to capture the queen and also to capture on e4, but MVL just plays rook to g5, and he was in this position on move 37 that world champion Ding Liren resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The position is just too awful to even look at, and after a few simple moves like, let's say, capture on e4, MVL could easily trade rooks here, capture on c4, there's just no counterplay, and the two connected pass pawns are marching forward. Something like, let's say, queen g4, queen to c7 with check, for example, king to h6, you just continue advancing the pawn, and even though you have a queen, a bishop, and the knight in front of the white king, there's just no way to make a threat here, like nothing. Now, whatever you play does not threaten anything. Well, you can even play pawn to g5, just pawn to a7. You free up the a6 square for the rook, and after captures, you are very close to the white king, but you are also getting checkmated. Something like king to g5, queen g7 check, king to f5, and now rook to f6 will be checkmate, or any of the other checkmates that are possible. So yeah, tough game for Ding, tough tournament for Ding, even though it started really well, like I said, starting off with 6 draws, then losing game 7, drawing game 8, and losing to MVL. And while it's not a shame to lose against Alireza and MVL in a tournament, not winning a single game, even without being the reigning world classical champion, I guess it's not the best way to play. And it's very hard to recall after Ding winning his World Chess Championship title that he had not a good event, but a decent one. I've shown in the previous video, these are the standings. So Ding sharing second to last place with Jan Nepomniachtchi with 3.5 points. So that is astonishing, as two of them have played a match for the World Chess Championship not so long ago. Like I said, for those of you who haven't seen my previous video, do check it out. Alireza's game against Fabi really awesome. But yeah, Alireza won the tournament, 6 points, followed by Fabi, 5.5, MVL with 5, shared with Nodrbek also, 4.5, Pragnananda, Gukesh, Wesley So with 3.5, Ding Liren, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and with 3 points. Definitely not his tournament, on Nishigiri. And also, if you haven't seen my previous video, these are the current people who are rated over 2700 or over. 32 of them in the top 10: Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, Arjun Erigesi, Alireza Firouz, Jan Nodrbek, Abdusattorov, Gukesh, Wei, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Wesley So. Those are the top 10, followed by Anand, and so on and so on. The big winners, Fabiano Caruana, very, very close, less than 3 points to 2800 again. Like I said, very hard winning tournament at this rating range. Alireza jumping from number 9 to number 5, winning 15 points. Also the big winner. The biggest winner by far in the 2700 club is Hans Niemann, who jumped from 27 to number 16, 11 places, grabbing 22 rating points. He's currently at 2733. Also Vincent Keimer grabbing 10 points. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the big winners. Biggest downside the biggest loser, Anish Giri, losing 21 rating point, is at 2724. Again, Giri being just out of the top 10, not just out of the top 10, but also world number 22. It would be, well, very hard to remember when was the last time something like this happened, where he actually gets closer to maybe dropping out of the 2700 club. Okay, it's not that severe yet, but you know, two more bad events and you are out of the 2700 club. So yeah, it's a dangerous place. Many new young players are coming, many hungry players are coming, and yeah, the old guard will have to fight really well in order to retain 2700 plus. I mean, you can see Anand is able to do it. Anand's been doing it for a very long time. He, like, in the next time I show you the ratings list, he will probably already be back into the top 10. But yeah, it's definitely not easy. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Brilliant stuff by MVL. Definitely having a great tournament. You know, if not for Fabi Zandalirez's spectacular performance, could be even the winner of the event. But yeah, what are you gonna do? So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Robert Stadelman, Jacob Servala, Jake Obid, Otis the Great Dane Who Loves Chess, and Andrei Shrade for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And for those of you who were wondering, yes, my finger is now much better. Thank you for being so concerned in the previous 2 weeks of videos. See you soon.